What happens when my peaceful farm life collides with a neighbor's all-out protest? Can laughter and cows turn chaos into unexpected camaraderie, or will my rural charm be trampled? The sun was shining brightly in the azure sky, transforming our sleepy little town into a scene straight out of a postcard, until it was interrupted by the unmistakable sound of Karen's voice. It was high-pitched, like a banshee who woke up on the wrong side of the bed. "Ethan Miller, your cows are ruining the neighborhood," she screeched, waddling toward me with the energy of 1,000 angry bees. I stood there, coffee cup in one hand, a freshly baked muffin in the other, my brow arching in amusement. Sure, the cows had a penchant for chewing on everything in sight, including the neighbor's prized petunias, but she could really stand to mellow out a bit for the sake of her blood pressure. Plus, I couldn't help but think, who knew cows held the power to bring out such outrage? Before I could even respond, Karen unleashed a full tirade. "They're trampling all over my property. It's an eyesore. We moved to this neighborhood for tranquility, and yet here I am, surrounded by farm animals." I couldn't catch every detail of her complaint, because honestly, listening to her was like trying to sip tea while riding a roller coaster. Impossible to keep it together. The intricate ballet of her arm movements as she raged was rather entertaining, though. It was like watching an opera where all the characters had secretly agreed to overact. In the background, my cows picked up on her melodrama, giving her their best indignant stares while mooing in harmony, as if to protest their unwarranted bad reputation. "Karen, my lovably loud ladies and gents are merely embracing the spirit of nature," I replied, my voice light, thick with laughter that I struggled to stifle. "You've got to admit, nothing says rural life quite like a cow grazing happily in a field. Plus," I added with a cheeky grin, "they're less hazardous than a swarm of bees invading your picnic." Tommy, who had appeared mysteriously from the side like a guardian angel of good vibes, snorted in agreement while sporting his trademark smile, his cow tattoo doing a little jig. I whispered to him I should charge her for the entertainment, and he countered with a gleeful chuckle, "Only if I get a cut for motivational speaking on how to annoy your cranky neighbor." Karen wasn't having any of my humor. She crossed her arms, her face scrunching up in a way that made her look like she'd just bitten into a lemon. "This isn't a joke, Ethan. I'm going to file a formal complaint," she declared, as if she were holding the nuclear button to end all nuclear buttons. I couldn't help but wonder if she ran a shadow organization for disgruntled neighbors, because she was throwing all sorts of legal verbiage around, shouting until she was almost blue in the face. My mind darted back to the countless zoning and livestock regulations I'd explored, my trusty zoning exemption tucked away in the office like a secret weapon. It was worth a tiny dance victory if I could manage to rattle her cage while still keeping my bovine buddies safe. As if sensing an impending showdown, one of my cows, Bessie, waddled over and began chewing dramatically on a piece of grass, almost like she was mocking Karen's monologue. "Honestly, Karen," I said, a grin threatening to split my face in half, "my cows are just grazing, and if they storm your petunias, we can turn it into an agricultural trade. I'll trade you fresh milk for a bouquet. You could spotlight your common grievances on the evening news." Tommy burst into laughter as Karen's face turned an interesting shade of crimson, caught somewhere between frustration and disbelief. Eyeing her closely, I carefully reiterated, "Besides, didn't the town council offer some zoning exemption specifically for farmers? It's probably in the fine print that states cows bring joy and grass stains." Karen's glare could have singed the grass beneath our feet, yet I savored every moment. It was like being on stage, and I had no intention of relinquishing the spotlight to her ever-growing attitude. "Let's not forget," I continued, "you are well aware that I'm an established neighbor here, right? I mean, I've even got my cows registered. Wouldn't it be improper to move against such adorable characters?" The look of incredulity on her face was priceless. For a moment, it seemed as if her stern exterior was cracking under the weight of my ridiculousness. Did her business casual attire make her feel too official to simply laugh it off? Tommy offered an exaggerated thumbs up, raising his cup of iced tea as if toasting to my triumph in this melodramatic skirmish. I leaned back, arms crossed, anticipating the rebuttal and relishing in the chance to turn this nonsensical mess into a catalyst for laughter. Who knew the neighborhood forces of nature could be so entertaining? But from the disappointed pout Karen wore, it seemed the battlefield might just be heating up. What was her next move going to be? The following morning, as the sun crept over the horizon like an eager teenager sneaking out of the house in search of adventure, I heard an unusual commotion filtering through my window. It was as if a circus had erupted in my backyard. I pushed the curtain aside, only to be confronted by the sight of Karen and an entourage of disgruntled neighbors, armed with lawn chairs, picket signs, and a megaphone. It was an all-out, no cow left behind protest. The sight was so absurdly entertaining that I couldn't help but chuckle. Tommy, who had joined me by now, gawked and grinned while raising an eyebrow, clearly impressed by the sheer scale of Karen's new tactics. "Should we charge admission for this delightful spectacle?" he joked, trying to suppress his laughter. Who knew we would find ourselves in the ridiculous position of countering a neighborly coup d'etat led by Karen Jenkins? "Ethan, come out and face the mob," Karen bellowed through her trusty megaphone, which had turned her voice into a rallying cry that must have echoed to the neighboring county and back. The sheer melodrama of it all made me burst into a fit of laughter again. I could already envision the signs: "Mooville is outrageous," and "No cows allowed," decorated in bright colors as my heavenly herd grazed peacefully, utterly oblivious to the chaotic antics unfolding around them. It was as if I had conjured carnival madness straight from a comedy show. Still chuckling, I slipped into my sandals and grabbed a glass of lemonade, buoyed by a wave of mischievous excitement. Was it wrong to just sit back and enjoy some popcorn while she ranted? With a bemused grin plastered on my face, I strolled out, raising my glass in mock salute to this elaborate performance. "What's this? We have a petition for a neighborhood cowspiracy," I called out playfully, which resulted in a collective gasp. No one was prepared for my entrance. Karen's eyes narrowed at me, fiery determination shining through her normally stiff demeanor. "This isn't a game, Ethan. Your cows are destroying the community's peace," she spat back, a slight tremor of frustration breaking through her otherwise controlled facade. As the crowd began to chant, "No cows, no cows," it felt as though I had stepped onto the set of some over-the-top reality show, prepared for the masses with popping drama and ridiculousness. "Peace is subjective, Karen," I called back, reveling in the absurdity of the moment. "Besides," I added with a cheeky grin, "I mean, who could resist a daily dose of bovine beauty roaming free? It's the hallmark of rural charm." With every word, an unexpected camaraderie of laughter spread among my fellow neighbors, and I could see their expressions shifting from passive disapproval to quiet amusement. Even Tommy jumped in, waving his arms like a conductor directing an offbeat orchestra. "Yeah, go cows," he cheered, grinning like a Cheshire cat. Who knew my friend could take the ridiculousness of this situation and turn it into the perfect comic relief? In the roaring chaos of protest, even the cows seemed to chuckle along, an undeniable, powerful force of nature, unraveling the absurdity of it all. With the protest in full swing, Karen clutched her megaphone tighter, as if it were a lifeline she couldn't afford to lose. "Ethan, this isn't just about your cows. It's about zoning laws. It's about values." She shot back like a charging bull, and for a moment, her intensity made me wonder if I'd accidentally tripped into a Shakespearean play. "Values? Like dramatics? Because you're showing them brilliantly," I replied, taming my laughter. "If I were doing an audition for a new stage play about entitled neighbors, you would win the lead role, hands down." My words ignited snickers and giggles among the crowd, and I could swear I saw a spark of frustrated amusement cross Karen's face. It seemed that despite her best efforts, I was somehow commandeering the scene. Finally, with the crowd still buzzing around her, Karen faltered. "This has gone too far," she declared with a huff, gesturing to the signs flapping like mutant pigeons in the breeze. She almost stumbled over one of her own signs, and in a moment of glorious comedic timing, she tumbled into the grass with a perfectly synchronized flop. The sight was enough to generate an uproar of laughter, spurred by my own surprised snickers. "All in favor of renaming this neighborhood Karen's Comedy Club, say moo," Tommy shouted, which only fueled the laughter echoing through the air. With the powerful backdrop of her defeat, my cows settled in peacefully, chewing away while I watched this theatrical performance unfold. Who knew Karen Jenkins could lend herself to slapstick comedy too? As the laughter faded and Karen finally narrowed her eyes at the crowd regaining some composure, a sudden thought struck me like a thunderbolt. Just think about it, Karen. If you can't beat them, join them. You might as well become our honorary musician. The crowd burst into another fit of giggles. It was unlikely she would ever embrace a cowscape in her heart, but within the absurdity, maybe, just maybe, there was a glimmer of hope for some mutual understanding. Could the cows and Karen coexist? Might I broker an unusual truce? The tension of the moment hung in the air like the perfect stage setup, waiting for that dramatic and truly unpredictable climax that only a woman as tenacious as Karen could provide. I couldn't help but wonder. The cows are standing their ground, but was Karen ready to partner with her nemesis for a peaceful cohabitation solution? The laughter echoing through the neighborhood was nothing short of a bizarre symphony. A cacophony punctuated by the low mooing from my cows and the occasional crack of Karen's stern voice trying to regain control. She was an exotic flower wrestling with a stubborn weed, and I could almost hear her thoughts churning like a blender full of frustration mixed with disbelief. Who does this guy think he is? Must have been her mantra at that moment, but the delightfully absurd situation had handed the crown of theatrics to me. While Karen's vision of neighborhood tranquility had morphed into a comedic performance, I seized the moment to bolster my own self-appointed role as the conqueror of neighborly peace. This is proving to be an unforgettable episode, I shouted with zest, causing a ripple of laughter through my audience. Who knew my days of farming could become a riveting neighborhood spectacle? Tommy, sensing an opportunity to escalate the vibrant carnival spirit, chimed in. Ethan, can we ensure all future protests come with cotton candy and a petting zoo? With his buzz cut bobbing in enthusiasm, he threw his hands in the air as if orchestrating the chaos. I couldn't help but catch onto his infectious vibe. Yes, the ultimate protest makeover, featuring Karen the cow wrangler and her sworn army of motivated supporters, I replied, spinning the ludicrous idea even further with a grand flourish of my arms, gesturing towards my cows, who mere moments ago had turned the field into their own grassy buffet. It was a brilliantly chaotic tableau, an unlikely alliance between cows and comedy. Yet, right in the center, Karen stood fuming, attempting to restore a sense of order like the main character in a soap opera drowning in melodrama. Enough of this, Karen finally bellowed as if slamming the gavel in some imaginary courtroom. Her hands flying, she attempted to clarify her grievances once more, channeling the sheer essence of a stern schoolmarm tackling a room full of unruly kindergarten kids. Upholding the community values means holding you accountable, Ethan. This is not about comedy. This is about... But before she could finish her legalistic rebuttal, she was cut short by a cacophonous moo from Bessie, my ever-curious Holstein, who had strolled forward to inspect the row of protest signs. With a delicate chew, she plucked one of them right from the grass. Bessie, the noisemaker. I laughed, pointing at my cow, who seemed unfazed by the commotion surrounding her, displaying a remarkable misunderstanding for the significance of no cows allowed. As if on cue, the collective laughter erupted again, swallowing any pompous seriousness Karen had tried to recapture. It was clear Karen had reached her limits. Her cheeks flushed as shades of crimson heightened her usual pale complexion. "This is outrageous," she sputtered, her eyes darting around to test the resolve of the crowd. Yet the crowd, now basking in the warmth of mirth, appeared far more enamored with the spectacle than cowering before her honorary reign. I seized the moment to elevate our camaraderie. "Listen up, everyone. If we can't beat them, we should charm our way to victory," I said with a flourish. "So I propose we host a neighborhood cow festival to celebrate our newfound bovine bond." The idea hung in the air like a tantalizing fresh pie, and positivity began to ripple through the crowd like a gentle wave. Even Karen's compatriots began to whisper, the overwhelming laughter pulling them together while faint hints of reluctance cloaked her stern expression. "Are we really considering this?" Karen shot back, her incredulity palpable as she eyed those who had initially been her allies but now smirked and snickered with curious consideration. "The idea seems utterly ludicrous, doesn't it?" But deep inside, amidst the exclamations echoing in the audience, she too could sense a subtle shift. It was happening. I saw it in the arch of her brow and the narrowing of her eyes. Was that a flicker of realization surfacing? because a cow festival sounded like the perfect way to transform discontent into community joy. Good vibes abound, complete with hay rides, fresh scones, and maybe some traditional barn dances well rooted in neighborly spirit. Once considered nemeses, I declared with a glee-filled chortle, we shall now be united leaders of our bovine brigade against a backdrop of barnyard bliss. The smiles began to spread with the promise of creativity and camaraderie, and even Karen's exasperated demeanor began to soften, just a fraction. Well, I suppose if the cows are part of this community, I can be accommodating, she grumbled, her bitter tone almost cracking into something unrecognizable, akin to acceptance. My heart soared at this fleeting concession. Joining forces to host the cow festival sounds like a perfect plan, I exclaimed, raising my glass of lemonade high like a triumphant trophy. In that moment, it wasn't just about cows or flowers or trumped-up zoning laws. It was about forging connections through the laughter we'd shared and the mutual absurdity of our circumstances. Could Karen and I truly join hands in this mission, growing from adversaries into partners in joy? When the echoes of laughter began to give way to cheers celebrating this unexpected turn, I realized I hadn't just won a battle of wills. I had sparked a journey of neighborly unity, and perhaps even a new tale to tell. The cows, the comedy, and the unforeseen alliance were all part of the narrative waiting to unfold. The real question loomed now, buzzing in my mind like an unseen bee. Would the cow festival bring about an even deeper understanding among neighbors, or would it usher in a new chapter of comical chaos altogether? Only time, and a few well-behaved bovines, would tell. As our laughter subsided and the adrenaline of surprise began to settle, the reality of my impulsive cow festival proposal rolled in like a long-awaited summer storm. Would we truly pull this off? I glanced at Tommy, whose ever-enthusiastic spirit matched my own. He looked at me with those bright eyes that sparkled with mischief, a silent agreement forming between us as we plotted the festivities. Ethan, do you think we could get some local artisans on board? Maybe a pie competition, he suggested, rubbing his hands together, already envisioning the pie stands filling the yard. The thought of fragrant pastries wafting through the air had us both positively giddy. It was just the kind of excitement I needed to douse the residual tension that lingered from Karen's tirade. While Tommy and I animatedly discussed our grand plans, I couldn't help but steal glances at Karen, who, though begrudgingly on board, was still trying to regain some semblance of authority. Her brows knitted together, she began jotting down notes on her phone, likely drafting a list of rules to ensure the festival wouldn't spiral into utter chaos. What's a festival without a few rules, right? I mused aloud, unable to suppress the grin tugging at my lips. Can't have cows bouncing around willy-nilly, now can we? I couldn't resist the whirlwind of silliness that had engulfed every conversation in the vicinity. The people around us snickered. They were intrigued by the prospect of a festival and torn between laughter and anticipation, just as I was. But then it hit me. I had a secret weapon. And no, it wasn't Tommy's infectious enthusiasm or even my own sheer willpower. It was Bessie, my ever-curious Holstein, who had summoned the laughter that rattled Karen's stern exterior just moments ago. What if we enlisted her as the star of the show? I turned to my newfound partner in fun. What if we made Bessie the queen of the cow festival and crowned her alongside a cow parade? I exclaimed, practically vibrating with ideas. Tommy burst into laughter. Ethan, if that doesn't reel in the crowds, what will? Bessie could be the face of our community branding. I could already see the snazzy buttons, emblazoned with images of her munching grass in all her glory. Epic marketing potential right there. Little did we know, this utter silliness was about to trigger a neighboring brainstorm tsunami. Karen's frown softened further as she engaged in a back and forth with Tommy about how many ribbons we should create for the best cows. We could have categories: best personality, best moo, and maybe even best cow costume, she added, her previous disdain transmuting into a begrudging acceptance as amusement twinkled in her stern blue eyes. If I ever thought I'd see this uptight woman wearing anything resembling levity, it was now. Tommy and I began chanting, "Cow parade, cow parade," drawing in more neighbors who caught wind of this bizarre transformation fest. Before I knew it, even the neighbors who had previously sided with Karen were chuckling and nodding, feeling the community spirit rise like a bread loaf nurturing in the warmth of support. Suddenly, as plans for the festival began to crystallize around us, Karen turned, producing those infamous documents we had both been fighting over. Shuffling them like an overzealous conductor, she declared, "Now, let's clarify the logistics. If we're going to do this right, permits will be essential." Oh boy, I thought, here comes the real Karen with her red tape and zoning rant. But to my surprise, her tone was now almost admiring. It seemed she wanted the festival to succeed just as much as I did. "I'll ensure everything is up to code, especially the portion where we park the food trucks," she began, diving back into functional mode. The woman actually sounded committed to her newfound role as the festival overseer. How had we swapped roles without even making a formal exchange? And why did I feel a strange sense of gratitude? Fueled by our pacing excitement, we mapped out the day. Competitions, contests, and the glorious parade of bovines half-dragged, half-charged through the grassy stretch of my farmland. With each new suggestion proposed, we edged away from looming burdens of entitlement and negativity. Even the most stubborn villagers had volunteered to contribute somehow, baking pies, cleaning up fences, and we even got a commitment from the local band. Who would have guessed that the collective energy of cows and chaos could single-handedly reshape the tone of our neighborhood? The stars aligned. I felt the possibilities unlock with each laughter-laden idea, lifting the spirits of what had once been a bitter conversation, a great storyline for the ages. As the sun began to loom low on the horizon, painting the sky in hues of lavender and gold, I marveled at the sight of everyone excitedly contributing to the festival in their own special ways. It was surreal. Karen, now elbows deep into festival planning, was debating which porta potties were most aesthetically suited for the pastoral backdrop. Who would have thought that a few cows would catalyze such change? I thought back to my earlier moments filled with dread over complaints. And now, I stood here amidst joint laughter, banter, and a surprising collaborative spirit, filling me with hope. As the festival day approached, I couldn't help but hope that the whimsicality of our plans wouldn't just bring laughter once, but also deepen the connections among our eclectic group of neighbors. It was a classic tale. Poor farmer meets entitled neighbor, laughter erupts, and hearts soften, maybe even an ending worthy of an old-world fairy tale. But the ultimate question persisted in the back of my mind, leaving a delicious taste of anticipation. Could laughter truly bridge the gap we once thought unpassable? And would Karen's resolve finally melt over a plate of fresh pie? Time would tell, and I prepared for whatever whimsical might unfold. As the much-anticipated cow festival crept closer, our small neighborhood was abuzz with excitement, transforming into a hive of colorful plans. Kids darted around with sketches of cow-themed decorations, while older folks debated which music would best capture the essence of our grand moo-tacular event. Tommy and I embraced our roles as chief cow-tastrophists, the masterminds behind the festival chaos. After all, our intentions were as pure as the daisies dotted around my pasture. Who knew that in a world of serious complaints about zoning laws and suburban etiquette, the joyous grunts of cows and laughter from our neighbors could serve as the melody of unity? We were in prime time to create a cute community fair that even Karen couldn't help but admire. Well, at least I hoped so. Even as enthusiasm swelled, Karen still possessed an uncanny ability to reignite stress with just a single raised eyebrow. I could practically hear her calculating the number of sanitation stations needed for the festivities. In her pursuit of perfection, she rallied us all into her living room, a conference scene worthy of a corporate board meeting, with graphs and flowcharts conspicuously strewn across her pristine coffee table. "We simply cannot have a line for food trucks spiraling into the street," she declared, hands on her hips, her inner drill sergeant rearing its fierce head. But something remarkable happened. Amidst her fixation on rules, a few gentle slaps of laughter erupted, easing our tensions. "Oh, come now, Karen. Maybe we should set up a cow line waiting challenge while we're at it," Tommy quipped, puncturing her stern demeanor like a balloon. Her chuckle quickly followed. As the laughter echoed around the room, it dawned on me that our cow festival was blossoming into an unexpected harmony of hilarity and teamwork. Every week leading up to the big day became a routine of neighborly bonding. Karen transformed into an unlikely ally, bringing decorative ideas that incorporated her signature elegance, while Tommy topped it off with infectious jokes about cows bedecked in bows and tiaras. The absurdity of it all made my heart soar. Who knew that one woman's complaint about my bovines could perhaps unite an entire community? I half expected Bessie to walk down the street with a crown just to claim her rightful title. Perhaps, I mused, we were about to take this town from complaint to cowhip. Dare I say, a real-life fairy tale. Our flamboyant cow festival day arrived. The atmosphere infused with the scent of freshly baked pies and vibrant decorations swaying in the soft summer breeze. Bessie, undoubtedly the star of the show, ambled about, ready to strut her stuff in front of a crowd. I had adorned her neck with a garishly decorated garland crafted by Tommy's daughter, which she protested against adorning, but once she took a few businesslike strides, she wore it proudly, like the queen she was. Honestly, I felt like a proud parent at a talent show, ready to cheer her extravagant moo down the runway. I stood at the parade's starting point, flanked by smiling neighbors, watching as children raced with glee, waving their banners and shouting, "Cows are friends," to the delight of all gathered. But just when it felt like we'd reached the apex of wholesome chaos ripe with laughter, a sudden stirring caught my eye. Karen was darting in and out among the crowd in a whirlwind, shuffling between guests and focusing on her clipboard with remarkable intensity, balancing her role as a hostess with that of a fierce festival enforcer. "Time for the best moo contest," she announced, her voice booming through the chatter like a trumpet signaling the start of a parade. My heart warmed at the transformation of the woman I once thought was a staunch foil to happiness, now rallying everyone with enthusiasm as she called out the participants. The best moo competition was an absolute riot. As we cheered louder than highway freight trains. Each participant took turns attempting to replicate the deepest, loudest, and most ridiculous moo they could muster. Some brought in their own cow sounds, while others boldly improvised with terrible vocalizations that had the audience wheezing with laughter. However, nothing could quite compare to Bessie's tried and true baritone. I marveled as Karen, surprisingly, burst into hearty laughter, and for a moment, even she forgot about her meticulous checklist. Around me, neighbors were bonding over the sheer ridiculousness of our bovine-filled day. I couldn't shake the hope that perhaps this could even breed a sense of community that extended beyond today. As the sunset painted the festival grounds in a warm caramel glow, I paused to glance at my newfound friends. Our unlikely group had shifted from stark criticisms to jubilant camaraderie. I couldn't help but reflect on the power of laughter, how it managed to thaw the hard edges of entitlement and grind the gears of unity. I felt a twinge of surprise when Karen smiled at me, her stern demeanor softening as she claimed, "Who knew cows could be this effective at bringing us together?" The flourish of our ridiculous event had united us in ways I hadn't believed possible. With a hopeful bounce in my heart, I couldn't help but wonder, could we sustain this newfound sisterhood and brotherhood moving forward, well past ribbons and pies? Whether we could was a question that buzzed in my mind like the last rays of sunlight slipping behind the horizon, but one thing was certain. I was ready for whatever absurdity awaited us next. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting a golden hue over the festival grounds, an unexpected encore blossomed in the camaraderie swirling around us like the sweet scent of fresh hay. The cow festival had transcended its original purpose, morphing into a vibrant theater of connection, where laughter rang louder than any complaint Karen could ever muster. In a delightful twist, the judge of the best moo contest, once a stern figure of authority, now stood holding a microphone, dishing out impromptu observations about the various moo talents while igniting giggles among the crowd. I couldn't help but chuckle as I thought about how the serious neighborhood etiquette Karen had harped on for months lay in tatters somewhere amidst the decorated cows and trenchcoats sporting children. Apparently, nothing deflates a neighborhood complaint quite like a well-timed moo. With every chuckle and cheer, I watched the realization wash over the entire community. Sometimes, it takes the most absurd approach to sanity to revitalize a neighborhood. Tommy, fueled by the infectious energy, had rallied the children into a spontaneous cow-themed dance-off, resulting in a lively conga line that snaked around Karen, who, for the first time, looked thoroughly delighted. Little feet stomped clumsily while older siblings conducted themselves as head cow judges, each toppling over in fits of giggles. For a glorious moment, our complainant was transformed into a queen bee of cheer, a task she took in stride, beaming like a proud mentor. "Now remember, everyone, dance like no one's watching, unless it's a cow," she declared, her voice mingling with hearty laughter that echoed across the landscape. As the festivities wound down and dusk settled in, I gathered my newfound allies in a circle, eagerly anticipating my toast to our bovine beauties and the joyous chaos they had conjured. "Ladies and gentlemen, and all dedicated cow enthusiasts, I raise this glass to our indomitable herd." I paused dramatically as Tommy provided an exaggerated moo sound effect, rendering our audience into guffaws. "To Bessie, Elsie, and Daisy, you have truly forged a bond of laughter where there was once offensive complaints." The way the crowd joined in with enthusiasm made my heart swell. Even Karen raised her glass with a conspiratorial wink that hinted at her newfound acceptance of life on the farm. However, the ambiance of newfound acceptance was quickly interrupted by an unexpected turn of events. Just as the toast ended, Karen's watchful eye darted across the field, spotting an elderly resident attempting to unearth an overripe pumpkin for the pie contest. The mixture of horror and hilarity on her face was comically tragic. There she was, the authoritarian, no-nonsense neighbor, preparing to intervene once again. What possessed her to embark on this mission to control, or better yet, save the festival? I couldn't help but grin, half hoping that this little resurrection of her treating comedy as sport might just spin into another slapstick show. In a whirl of activity, Karen rushed to the scene, her bobble-headed demeanor returning to its more familiar, serious frontline. "Mr. Robinson, do you even know the safety protocol for carrying a pumpkin? You'll hurt your back," she called out, concern creeping into her tone. Yet instead of this leading to a confrontation, laughter erupted. The residents gathered, caught somewhere between hilarity and a hint of sympathy for poor Mr. Robinson, as he braved the hunting pumpkin terrain with the swagger of a true explorer. "It's fine, Karen. Got these old bones covered," he hollered back, flashing a grin. "Just adding to our festival spirit." The wave of humor propelled our festival into a new realm of community ducking and weaving between laughter and kindness, reminding us that even eccentric obstacles could be lived through with a hearty chuckle. With the festivities winding down, I breathed in the scent of roasted pies, mingled with the remnants of cow-themed balloons, as I gazed at the anchor of our community, awkwardly hustling with an inflated sense of purpose. Karen paused mid-sentence. "Well, if we're being honest, I might have overreacted about the cows," she admitted, her eyes sparkling with a guilty gleam of newly realized humility. "I didn't know they could bring everyone together like this." Her words hung tenderly in the air, a treasure hidden among the veins of laughter and cheer that danced above us. In the aftermath of our boisterous success, I felt a sense of wonder over the absurd twists life provides. After all, who would have thought that Karen Jenkins, staunch enforcer of order in our neighborhood, would become the unexpected champion of our cow festival? I looked around at the camaraderie forming amongst the once-induced tensions, and realized we had bestowed more than just a fun event upon the city. We perhaps unearthed a solution to the petty grievances. I wondered as I wrapped up amidst the joyous chatter, could this be the start of something beautiful? A blossoming connection that could endure beyond the cows and pumpkin pie? The answer would surely unfurl in time. But one thing was crystal clear. We were a community, and now it was time to charge forward, possibly armed with a few cowpats, but certainly with a larger heart.